You drive past it every summer. Miles of green stretching to the horizon. Corn taller than your car. A tractor rolling slow across a field the size of a small country. You think, this is where the real money is. No boss. No office. Just land, sky, and a paycheck that grows out of the ground itself. You picture the owner sitting on a porch, watching combines do the work, cashing checks every harvest. Here's the problem. That farmer might be losing money right now. Not someday. Right now. Today. And the strange part? He might still be standing in one of the most valuable pieces of real estate in the entire country. Let's start with the land, because that's where the fantasy dies first. The average acre of American farmland costs around $4,350. That sounds manageable until you remember a working commercial farm isn't 1 acre. It's hundreds, sometimes thousands. In Iowa, prime corn ground goes for $14,000 to $22,000 an acre. Do the math on a 500-acre operation. You're staring at a number with 7 zeros before you've planted a single seed. And that's just the dirt. Now you need equipment. A single new combine harvester, the machine that actually cuts and processes your crop, runs between $350,000 and over $1 million. One machine. You'll also need a tractor, a planter, a grain drill, storage bins, irrigation systems if you're not relying on rain. Used equipment helps. It still adds up to hundreds of thousands more. So before your first harvest, you're already leveraged to the ceiling. This is where most people quietly close the tab and go back to dreaming about beachfront property instead. But stay with this, because the twist hasn't even happened yet. Here's the part nobody puts in the postcard photos. Land ownership on a commercial farm splits into a few very different realities, and which one you're in decides whether you survive or drown. The first is the fully independent owner-operator. You own the land outright, or you're deep into a mortgage on it. You own your equipment, or you're leasing it through the dealer. Every input cost, every weather disaster, every price crash lands directly on you. Maximum control, maximum exposure. The second is the tenant farmer. You don't own the land at all. You rent it, often from an investor or a retired farm family, and you farm it under a cash rent or crop share agreement. Lower upfront cost. But now someone else takes a cut of your harvest before you ever see a dollar. The third is the corporate contract grower. Think poultry, hogs, sometimes dairy. A company like Tyson or Purdue owns the animals and the feed. You own the barns, the land, and the debt on both. They set the price. They set the standards. You absorb the risk of a bad flock, a disease outbreak, a broken contract renewal. 3 very different businesses. Same word on the sign. Farmer. Now here's where the real economics start to bite. Nationally, net farm income across the entire country is forecast at $153 billion for this year. Sounds massive. Spread that across 2 million farms, and the picture changes fast. Average net cash income for an actual farm business sits around $135,000 a year. That's not profit. That's cash before you pay down debt, before family living expenses, before taxes, before reinvesting in next year's seed and fuel. And that average hides something brutal. The median farm in America right now loses money. Not a small loss. The number sits at roughly negative $1,500 a year, once you count everything. Less than 5% of American farms are actually profitable from farming alone. Read that again. 90% of farm households depend on income from somewhere else. A spouse's job in town. A second business. Off-farm work just to keep the lights on at the farm that's supposed to be the business. You thought you were buying a business. You might actually be buying a very expensive, very demanding second job that requires a first job to fund it. And it gets heavier. Total farm debt across the country is projected to hit a record $624 billion this year. Interest payments alone are eating roughly $90 million a day nationwide, just in interest. Not principal. Just the cost of owing money. Chapter 12 bankruptcies, the kind built specifically for family farms, jumped 46% last year. The Midwest and the Southeast got hit hardest. Arkansas posted the worst numbers it's seen this century. And here's a detail that should stop you cold. Many of the farmers drowning the fastest don't even qualify for that bankruptcy protection because the law requires most of your income to come from farming. If you're working a second job to survive, you might not even get the safety net built for people exactly like you. Silence for a second. Let that sit. Why does this keep happening to something as essential as food production? Prices, input costs, weather, all real. But there's a quieter force running underneath all of it. Nearly 30% of farm income this year is projected to come not from crops or livestock, but from government payments, subsidies, insurance-backed support programs. Take that layer away, and the income picture for the entire sector collapses further. The farm isn't just competing against weather and the market anymore. It's structurally dependent on federal policy just to stay upright. Now picture the owner again. Not the porch fantasy, the real one. He bought land at $14,000 an acre because that's what the market demanded. He financed a combine because harvest doesn't wait for savings to catch up. He's watching corn and soybean prices sit low for a fourth straight year while fertilizer, fuel, and labor costs stayed high. His debt-to-asset ratio isn't 1980s crisis bad yet. Economists keep saying that, like it's supposed to be comforting. Not yet. But not yet isn't the same as fine. And there's a human cost buried in these numbers that rarely makes it into the spreadsheets. The suicide rate among American farmers runs about 3.5 times higher than the national average. So why does anyone still do this? Because land appreciates. Because ranch land in parts of the country jumped nearly 11% in value in a single year. Because owning dirt that produces food is still, structurally, one of the most durable assets on Earth, over decades, not quarters. The farmer losing money on operations this year might still be sitting on land worth triple what he paid for it 15 years ago. He's not bankrupt on paper. He's bankrupt on cash flow. Those are two completely different diseases, and only one of them shows up when you drive past his fields admiring the view. That's the real twist in this business. You're not actually buying a food production company when you buy a commercial farm. You're buying a leveraged, weather-exposed, policy-dependent real estate position that happens to grow corn while you wait for the land itself to become the payout. The corn is almost incidental. The land was always the actual asset. So next time you drive past that endless green field and think about the money just growing there, remember what's actually underneath it. A mortgage the size of a mansion. A combine payment bigger than most car loans. A government check propping up a third of the income. And an owner who's probably driving to a second job the second harvest ends. The field looks peaceful from the highway. It rarely is up close.